Well, let's see how many of these I have left. 4. I'm just about to the end of these. It's got all these warnings on this label here about staying out of sunlight and don't drink milk and make sure you take it with food. And not only that, but they taste nasty and make you feel bad. But not nearly as bad as Lyme's disease. You see, this is doxycycline, and the reason I'm taking it is a month or so ago I was in Kentucky where ticks are rampant, and not only are there a lot of them, but like 50% of them carry Lyme's disease. Well, over the course of 2 days I got dog ticks and deer ticks and Lone Star ticks, and most of them I got off, but a few got dug in and a few stayed. And just to be on the safe side, I'm going through this regimen about to finish it up of taking doxycycline to prevent Lyme's disease. You know, all of those ticks carry different diseases, not just Lyme's, and they're dangerous. But the most dangerous ticks in this country, really in this world, but specific to America, don't live in the woods. They live in Washington. You see, there's these people that begin to practice something called politics, and they become politicians. But once they win and they get to Washington, they get on that giant government dog, which really is you and me, and they get their beaks buried in the blood of that government dog, and they like it. They get bloated with power. They get bloated with pleasure. You see, these people that we call politicians, they make more money than the vast majority of us. They go to nicer parties. They rub shoulders with more important people, and they get the notion that they have power. And they get on the government dog, as it was, or as it is, and they become politics, not ending in TICS, but TICKS. And like I said, they like it. And once they get their beaks buried in that power, in that money, in that pleasure, in that position, they don't want to turn loose. How many politicians do you know of that actually win a place in the government, in Washington, and then decide, well, I don't like that? They get buried in, and they stay, and they stay, and they stay. And they're not concerned about the dog, as it were. They may go up there with concerns about representing you and me and unborn babies and, you know, and military veterans and whatever else, but it's not long after they get their beaks buried up there that their concern is more about them. And the dog begins to suffer. And the closer to the head of the dog that they get, the more power they get, the more money they get, the more influence they get, the more pleasure they get from all of that, the harder it is to dislodge them. That's why you have so many repeat politicians now become politics, that they run these campaigns, they invest all kind of money, all kind of time, so that they can maintain their position on the government dog, as it were. Now, it's really little known that God ordained a very special kind of government in these United States. And that government is me, and it's you. Romans 13:1 says that we are to submit ourselves to the government authorities that God has placed over us. And that authority rests ultimately with the people. But the politics, they won't give you Lyme's disease, but they will surely infect you with their Lyme's disease. And that is that they have all these lines of how we're looking out for you, how I need to stay, how this will be good for America, or this will be good for you, or we need to look after this person or that person, when really the only person that most of them, and I'm not saying all of them, but the only person that most of them are looking out for is themselves. Now, this is just a word to you younger folks out there. A lot of you have kind of avoided politics, and I don't blame you. And a lot of you don't vote. And I can't necessarily blame you for that either. But you need to understand this. And I think a lot of you will, simply because so many people have read the trilogy of books called The Hunger Games and or seen the movies. You may not understand Washington politics, but to a certain extent you understand Panem. Well, the politics are wanting to lead us to Panem. That is where they run everything, where they completely control our lives. They want that government dog to be bigger and bigger and bigger, and so that they have everything on the top end of society and the top end of culture, and you and I have just enough to keep the dog alive. They want us to live in District 13 or District 9 or District 2, but they're going to live in the capital, and they're going to enjoy the benefits of sucking the blood out of that big dog in the capital while the rest of us scrape and scrounge to feed the dog. This may seem a little bit radical, but I'm here to tell you right now that's where things are pointed right now. If you listen at all, it's the government says, give us more power, more power, more control, more control. Shut up, you're stupid. Let us tell you what you need, when really all they're concerned about is what they are getting. Listen, you and I are the government. We are that dog. And if we are so foolish as to let the politics run the dog as opposed to the dog manage the politicians, then that's on us. So I want to just say this to you. Yes, submit yourselves to the government authority that God's placed over you. That means that we submit ourselves to ourselves, but we also need to take responsibility by being informed and by being vocal. Every politician, every politic has a mailbox, they've got an email, they've got a telephone, and they've got ears and they've got eyes, and they need to hear from us. And so I just want to leave you with this thought. Don't just berate the government. Be the government. Get involved and vote. Thanks.